Good morning. Can I ask for a little bit of audience participation? I'd like to see a show of hands of how many of you have been in the animal welfare industry for 5 years or less. Great. It's fresh faces, fresh perspectives. That's always a great thing to keep our industry on our toes. How many of you have been in the industry between 5 and 10 years? Longevity. How many have you been in the industry for 10 to 15 years? Wow. Anybody over 15 years? That's awesome. So for those of you who've been in the industry for 15 years or more, you've seen the paradigm shift in terms of the expectation of the care for animals from our community, from our leaders, and from each other. Pets are family, right? And we should be the first in line to support and reinforce that message. Today, my goal is to share with you a few strategies that have worked for my department in Washoe County, which is in Reno, Nevada, keeping in mind that one size does not fit all in terms of community approach, what your community needs, what your shelter needs. You may have different goals, you may have different needs, but I'm going to share some of the things that have worked for us. And in terms of uniqueness, I have to give you a little bit of history about our department, our partnerships, and kind of our community in order to paint the picture of success for Washoe County. So in 2002, a voter referendum was placed on the ballot, offering a proposal of regionalizing animal services in Washoe County. The cities of Sparks, the city of Reno, and Washoe County all under one roof, in exchange for a 3% property tax increase. In addition, in that referendum, it included a partnership with the Nevada Humane Society, and to share a co-located facility. So a private and a government facility shared under one roof. The referendum overwhelmingly passed, and in 2006, we opened our 60,000 square foot shared campus to the community. Part of the roles for each of our organizations, because we're two separate organizations, but we hope that we're benefiting the community by collaborating, by uniting resources and not duplicating resources, was to figure out who's going to do what, which organization is going to provide what service. And so part of the scope was Nevada Humane Society decided they would do and facilitate adoptions for all Washoe County animals. Now, in my opinion, this is a key piece of success for Washoe County, because this took adoptions off of our scope, which allowed us to reallocate resources and to focus on other areas of animal control or animal welfare. Getting animals home, investigations, cruelty prevention, bite prevention, all the things that Animal Services does. But for today's scope and purpose, I'm going to focus on return to owner and some of the strategies that we've put into place to minimize the time spent in the shelter, and in some cases defer time spent altogether. See, I told you computers hate me. So in terms of data, today my focus is live animals. So our shelter takes in an average of 13,000 animals per year, including deads and wildlife. But for my scope and my purpose, in looking at return to owner percentages, I want only those live animals. I'm looking and focusing on those because those are the ones that have the opportunity to have a live outcome. As a municipal open admission shelter, we don't always have control over what comes into our facility, right? We have an obligation and a duty to accommodate our community. So we may have injured animals coming in any given day. We may have a hoarding case. 30 cats are coming your way. Better make room. But what are some of the things that we can focus and have control over in terms of intake? Can we shift our focus and our resources on some of those areas to defer animals or move them through the system faster? And how do we do this? Where do we focus? What do we need? Do we need resources? Do we need culture? Do we need leadership? The answer is yes. So for every organization, your focus and your goal is going to be different. And your measurement of how you're achieving and accomplishing those goals may be different. In terms of figuring out where it is that you are, where you want to be, and how far you have to get there, oftentimes you're going to be looking at data. You're going to be measuring. You're going to be trying to map out your goals, your future, where you're going. Computers hate me. So what I'm going to be sharing with you today is, again, a 10-year average of live intake. And so in terms of Washoe County, these are our numbers and the numbers that matter in terms of figuring out how we're going to move animals through the system alive. So again, I mentioned that partnership, that 51.3% rescued. We have partnerships not only with Nevada Humane Society, but with other rescue groups to get animals out alive. We have a number of tools in the shed that help us with live release. But again, today we're focusing on return to owner. 40% 10-year average of returned animals, and then 8.7, unfortunately, that don't make it out alive, or they die while they're in the shelter's care. So when we're looking at data, it doesn't lie, right? As long as the data that you're putting into your system is clean, accurate, what you retrieve on the other end is hopefully an accurate depiction of whatever it is you're tracking or looking at. In my department, we spend a great deal of time ensuring that the data that we put into our system is accurate, that we're running correction reports, and that we're making sure that our information is accurate to give us what we need to help guide us in our goals. What's interesting about this slide is that, again, we started tracking in 2008, is that the return to owner percentage was 31% back in 2008, which is nothing to shake a stick at. That's an excellent return to owner rate, right? We're proud of that. However, we wanted to continue improving. There's always room for improvement. There's always room to make things better, regardless of how excellent you might feel that you are. So in 2012, our department went to our Board of County Commissioners with an idea. And our idea was to have a pilot program, a free microchip program, for any pet in Washoe County, no strings attached. We want to see if this program will be successful in helping bump those return to owner numbers. The Board of County Commissioners approved the program, and the program lifted in 2013. And between 2013 and the end of 2015, Regional Animal Services microchipped just under 14,000 animals for free in our community. But more importantly than the number of animals that we microchipped, the number of animals that we returned by way of microchip was 8,000 in that same time period. So we went back to the Board of County Commission in 2015, and we asked the Board of County Commissioners if they would consider allowing our department to continue this free program based on the success, based on the dividends that were paid back to our community, to our shelter, to our staff. And they accepted it, and they agreed that this program was beneficial. And so if you look at the number of return to owner percentage, from 2014 to now, we remained above 40%. So this data tells me that the program was successful and that what we're doing is working. So again, data is important. Visit it often. Make sure that what it is you're tracking and the data that's standing behind your goal and your program is providing the information that you're looking and hoping for. So the blue numbers, for those of you that might not be able to see, those are the return to owner rate. The gray number at the top is our rescue or facilitated a live outcome, and then that orange number is the animals that were euthanized or died. So in terms of looking at our data, we're taking a little bit of a deeper dive, peeling one layer off the onion, if you will. I want to know how many animals did we defer? Did we prevent from coming into our shelter altogether? So the blue number there is indicative of those animals that were returned in the field. They never came inside of our shelter. My officers, my animal service assistants, were able to get a hold of their owner by way of microchip, license, or some other form of identification. And they got those animals home. The gold or the orange number are animals that were returned in the shelter. The importance of being able to recognize this is that I want to be able to increase that blue number. I want to be able to increase the number of animals that did not come into my shelter. The return to owner rate as a whole is great, but again, I'm focusing on deferring animals where I can. The minute that an animal comes into your facility, the clock is ticking. Sometimes the clock is ticking on a live outcome for that animal, and the cost associated with caring for that animal are increasing by the minute. So if we're able to get animals through the system and back home as efficiently as possible, or better yet, if we're able to defer animals from coming into our system at all, would we save tax dollars? Would we decrease euthanasia? Would we preserve a cat cage or a dog kennel for an animal truly in need? Absolutely. So I'll talk about our kind of two-pronged approach to how we return animals. All of my field staff are equipped with computers in their vehicles that has access to our database. They have smartphones. These are tools for them to utilize to do research and to get animals returned home in the field. We have what's called a free ride home program. Many of you have probably heard of something similar. If your animal has identification, microchip, license, any other form of identification, my staff are going to try to get that animal home to you. So this is important because when we married the free ride home program with our microchip program, that's how we sold it to our community. If I pick up your animal, and your animal has a microchip, guess what? I'm going to save you from impound fees, potential citations, and hopefully we're going to keep that cage open for another animal that truly needs it. So the first thing that my officers are going to do is scan the animal for a microchip. They're going to look for any identification. They're going to research our lost and found reports that are in our database. Remember, they have access to it in their trucks. So if you've put a lost report in, my officers are going to look there first to see if we have your dog or your cat. Talk to the neighborhood where that animal was picked up. Chances are someone knows where that animal lives. Try to see if you can get it home. And then they're going to upload a picture, which puts it onto our database and uploaded to our website within 30 minutes. So if you're at home or you're at work and you know your pet is missing, you can go onto our website, and every animal that's in our care is on that website. And it's uploaded and updated every 30 minutes. So what's the benefit of field return to owner strategies? Some of those intangible benefits. The most important benefit to me and my department, being able to work with my community, having my officer have that face-to-face dialogue, is building that rapport, building the trust with your community. Having the opportunity to have that face-to-face dialogue with a pet owner and return their pet to them and potentially resolve a problem at the root is priceless. Being able to do a yard assessment. Someone may say, you know what, I have this dog, continually digs under the fence. I don't know what to do. I'm at my wit's end. My officer can say, I can come do a yard assessment help you figure out where your issues are, give you some suggestions. My field officers are the professionals. They should be the conduit of information about all the inherent knowledge they know to that pet owner. Someone needs to have their animal spayed or neutered. Maybe they have a dog that roams, continually gets out of the yard. My officer can say, I have spay-neuter resources for you. Why don't you consider getting your animal spayed or neutered? These are some of the things that I feel are missed if someone just simply picks up the animal and drives it to the shelter. You don't have that face-to-face with your community. Let your community view you as a resource. And again, focusing on those long-term solutions to problems. It's easy to put the animal in the truck, drive it to the shelter, and drop it off, and go to your next call, right? Does this increase your euthanasia? Yes. Does this increase the animosity and the distrust between your community and you? Yes. And guess what? The pet owner's going to go get another pet. What problem did you solve? Now, this is not to say that we do not have a punitive approach. We're not going to continue to return your dog to you 5, 6 times. If you have a problem, let's help you fix it. But at some point, you got to meet us in the middle, or we're going to hand you a citation when we return your dog to you. Okay, there is a punitive approach that does get triggered at some point. Ultimately, our goal is to get those animals home. We never stop talking about the tools that are available to our community to be responsible pet owners and to come in and find your pet if it's missing. We talk about our microchip program everywhere we go. We talk about the benefits of our program, and we talk about how this program can benefit them. So if we focus on sharing those success, those win stories with our community about microchips and how we can get animals returned home, those in and of themselves sell your program. We've all heard the stories of a dog or a cat that's been returned after being separated from their owner for a year, sometimes longer, by way of a microchip, right? Those are wins. Your community loves to hear those stories. And if they're on the fence about whether or not they're going to license or microchip their animal, if they hear a story like that, that would sway me. Celebrate them, share them. So last summer, we focused on a few short 30-second PSA style little educational pieces. And one of them we did was on microchips. And so I'll see if I can share that with you today. Microchips serve as a permanent form of identification, and studies have shown that 1 in 3 pets will become lost in their lifetime. So it really helps to give us a tool to help reunite those animals back to their owners quickly. And we also try to help our community understand how they can be responsible pet owners. And the other thing that we do is, in terms of information that we track and keep in our system, is an alternate contact form. So if someone registers a pet with us, we try to establish an alternate person. Thank you. We try to establish an alternate person that may be on the list that can make decisions on your animal's behalf. This is so important when it comes to animals that we need to make a decision on. Let's say we pick up an animal that's injured, and that animal is registered to someone. We can't reach that person. If you have an alternate contact, chances are we can reach maybe that person, and they can help make a decision or get a hold of you as a pet owner to help us make a decision on the course of action. So in terms of once the animal comes into our facility, the strategies that we take once that animal comes in, because again, the clock's ticking, right? We want to make sure that we're swift and quick in making contact with you as a pet owner. Every animal goes through the intake process. They get scanned again. If they've already been scanned in the field, they get scanned again. Because let's face it, folks, we miss microchips sometimes, and it's hard to scan animals in the field. They're not always cooperative. So we scan them again. We take a photograph of them if there isn't already one on file. A clear photograph. What does the animal look like? So that if someone's looking from home, they can determine if that's their animal. Where was the animal found? And an accurate description of the animal. This is important too, and I think sometimes it's overlooked. The color and the breed to the best of your ability is important, because again, if you're looking from home, the way our software works, if someone is able to look from home, if the dog is listed as a black lab, and it's clearly a black pit bull, depending on your database and your software, the opportunity for that person to find that animal might be missed, depending on how that information is listed and how it shows up on the website. So make sure your staff are trained, and I realize mixed breeds are difficult. Do the best that you can. Color and breed are important as far as criteria. If the animal has ID, whatever form, we're going to be on the horn trying to get that animal back to you. If your information is updated in our system, our software is set up so that you get an automatic email if we have one on file for you. So within 15 minutes of that animal coming in, once that information gets cross-referenced, you're going to get an email letting you know your pet is with us. Come and get it. My staff pulls a report every morning and every afternoon of animals that came in with ID, and they get a hold placed on them. That hold notify list gets checked, and we start calling. If we can't reach you by phone, we send a letter. And in some cases, an officer might go out to their house. This isn't the norm, but we've done it from time to time to try to get a hold of you, to get that animal home to you. They're going to check the lost and found reports. Again, we do this twice a day. This is just a standard. My front office task does this to, again, move those animals through the system, get them out of the shelter, get them home where they belong. Check back. We make sure that when the community does lost reports, we tell them check back often. Don't give up. Sometimes it takes longer than a week to find your animal. Keep checking back. And then, of course, social media. It's a double-edged sword, right? In this case, social media can be your friend. We don't have our own social media. We ride the coattails of the county, but we also ride the coattails of a very strong group in Washoe County that has a lost and found page. They support our efforts and we support theirs. And they post pictures and descriptions of pets that are lost in the community, and they have a huge following. And lots of pets get reunited with their owners without us ever being involved, which is awesome. Deference, right? We're keeping them out of the shelter. There's also apps out there. Finding Rover is one that we use. It's a facial recognition app. It uses data points off of a photograph that you preload into the system. Before your pet ever becomes lost, you create a pet profile. Our data from our shelter gets pushed to that website. If there's a pet that gets impounded into our facility that has the data points that match your reported lost animal, you're going to get a notification. You need to check Washoe County because they may have your animal. So there's a lot of different resources out there. Apps are great, and many of them are free, and I encourage you to use them. Because in worst case scenario, it doesn't work and you just scrap it. So if the past is indicative of our future, we must come to the realization that focusing our resources on reactive programs are destined to fail us. We simply cannot build or adopt our way out of overcrowded shelters. We can't do it. We've been trying for years. We need to shift our focus on progressive programs that aim to stem the tide of animals coming into our shelters. We need to focus our resources on proactive programs that resolve issues and provide long-term solutions, not Band-Aids. We need to expect from us as leaders, our staff, that we bring long-term solutions to the table. And that's the norm, not outside the box thinking. I'd like to share just a short little story with you. I don't want to take up too much of Paula's time, but I feel like this is an interesting little story to share that kind of ties into the theme of our discussion today. Back in 2003, when I was early in my career in animal welfare, I took a job in a small shelter in the Central Valley of California. And the shelter was probably what many of you have heard or seen. That would be a nightmare shelter. Open air, no climate control, no appropriate office space, no hot water, no regular business hours. Not the best ideal scenario. No adoption program. There was essentially 2 part-time kennel staff that cleaned the kennels, and when they left at 11 a.m., there was no one at the shelter for the rest of the day, unless the officer was there. So I took the job, being the sucker that I am. As many of us are in this field, I think we are go-getters, overachievers, and we like to bite off more than we can chew. But without us, where would animals be, right? So the first thing that I did when I took over the program is develop an adoption program. It didn't cost anything. I started using Pet Finder, putting animals on there, taking pictures, doing evaluations, making the community aware that, hey, even though we only take in 1,500 pets a year, prior to now, these pets never saw the outside of the shelter once they came in, and they deserve better. I started taking the pets to adoption days. I started working with the community. I started doing Pet of the Week articles, just trying to raise the level of awareness in our community about the pets that we had that needed us. I started working with our city council, trying to build their trust. There wasn't really a high regard for animals back then in that community. So it was a challenge. It was an uphill battle. I worked under a police department at that time, and the chief didn't really care about animals. Just do whatever you need to do. I don't want to hear any complaints from the community. How many of you have heard that before? That's an issue. It's not acceptable to just do animal control so that you don't hear complaints. So the next couple of years, I worked on building that foundation for better conditions for those animals and for that community. The conditions were not desirable in the shelter for the staff or the animals, but we did what we had to do. And a couple of years later, we got a chief of police that came in that loved animals. And he came out to my shelter one day, and he was appalled. Not by the conditions the animals were being cared for, but by the conditions that were available to them and my staff. And so together, he and I worked for a change. We worked to hire an engineer and an architect to design a new facility. And we also worked to get the city council on board, because remember, this wasn't really a priority for them. So we started the plans in motion, and we started developing a shelter blueprint, and then we hit a recession. Everything got put on hold. We kept working behind the scenes. We kept doing all the work we'd already started with the adoptions and the community awareness and all the things that were important to continue that momentum, regardless of the physical building. A couple of years passed by, the project picked up again, thankfully, and we continued forward. And I got to play a part in every step of the way of that development of that shelter. And I got to help pick all of the colors and the aesthetics of the inside of that facility to help make it a pleasing place for people to come, to help it be inviting for volunteers, to help it be comfortable for animals, and to help that shelter embrace the growth that that community was bound to experience, and to have adequate sheltering for those animals. And I'll never forget, one of the city council members came up to me right as the project was concluding. And he said, "You know, Cheyenne, that doghouse you're building out there is really expensive." I said, "You're right, Councilman. It is expensive. But our community deserves it, our staff deserve it, and the animals deserve it." So by the time I left that shelter after 10 years of time, we had over 70% live release. I was the only officer. I managed the entire facility, and I had 2 kennel caretakers. So we had limited resources, but we worked hard. We developed a shelter that was inviting to the community. We had a handful of dedicated volunteers that we had provided a shelter that was welcoming for them to come to. We had outreach programs, and we had room for growth. So in terms of developing programs that are progressive and that are programs that are set up to deal with long-term solutions rather than Band-Aids, the importance is to be a part of your community, not just a place that you work, right? And the importance of being outward facing rather than inward. If you want your community to be a part of the solution rather than part of the problem, you need to lead by example. So with that, I will close my presentation. My contact information is there, and I believe we're holding questions till the end. I'll turn the floor over to Paula.
All right. How's everybody doing? Great. All right. My name is Paula Powell. I'm the Director for Animal Services with the City of El Paso. And, be honest with you, I kind of was surprised that I was selected to speak on this because we're still striving to get to be as great as Cheyenne and her group. We're not quite there yet, but what the leaders of the conference have explained to me is that, show where you are, show how you're doing it, and show how that we're setting the plan forward to increase our RTO rate. So that's what I'm going to try to do for you today, just to be honest with you. Our RTO rate from July until now has really increased tremendously, and you'll see, oh man, I gave away the answer to the prize question. So I'm gonna have to do another question, Gina. But you'll see some things that we've done, some things that we've planned, and kind of how we've worked it in El Paso. First thing is, we started with a plan. I'm not expecting you to read all the slides, but this is a picture of our strategic plan. I believe in a strategic plan. Our city believes in a strategic plan. It is not just like a word, and that's the big word, strategic plan. A lot of people have done those before. But we actually involved the community. We involved pet owners. We involved our field. We involved our neighboring cities. And we came up, it took us a year to come up with this plan. This is our guiding document. This is how we are going to live in the next year. And this is what's going to bring us to the 90% no-kill. It is our plan. It is not the Department of Animal Services plan, but is our plan. And a really key point in this is our goal number 1 is to reduce the number of pets entering animal services. It's really simple, right? So this is goal number 1. I actually am lucky enough to bring my goal leader for goal number 1, and she's actually in the room, and her name's Gina Ramirez, and she's over here. And I have a goal leader for each of these goals, and they follow, and they have very strict performance measures they follow, and they came up with them themselves. So I wanted to give you the historical data, which I already gave away the prize, but the answer. But I wanted to kind of go over 2016, 17, and 18 in El Paso. And these are our returned owners. And this is going to be crazy. What month did we start our program? Okay. You got enough prize for all of them? All right. I'll get another question later, okay? because I got prizes up here. The month of July is when Gina really took it upon herself to really start instituting Go One of our strategic plan. Our strategic plan, it was about that time that we really started working the plan and doing return to owner really extensively and paying a lot of attention to it. Some more stats that I want to show you is our RTO stats compared to our live release rate. There is a big time similarity. I don't think it's rocket science really, but I wanted to show it to you on a graph. This is our RTO rate, 16, 17, and 18, and 19 is already actually looking a lot better. But this is where you can go to your city council, your leaders in your community, because this is the money part. What we did was we took our RTOs for 2018, although those are all the dogs and cats you see up there. Any of them look familiar? And what we did is we multiplied by $22 a day. Your number may be different, okay, in your city. This is based on our budget and our intake. All right, that $22 per day is the number that we can. Our intake is $27,000 per year in El Paso. And then we took up our average length of stay for the last year, and that was $10. So if all of those dogs and cats that we RTO'd came into our animal services, I don't like to say shelter, so you'll see me say animal services, they came in and stayed 10 days, it would have cost us $944,240. Almost $1 million. We avoid, I mean, it's a cost avoidance we didn't have to spend just last year. Almost $1 million. Gina saved us. $1 million. So this slide, I'll talk a pretty long time. Some of the programs that we started, and just to give you a little background, I've only been in this business for about, almost a year. In April, it'll be a year. And a lot of what I talk about is raw. I'm like, okay, we need to get the animals back home. I get it. So how can we do that? First of all, strategic planning. The second thing we do is fire station microchips. We have fire stations all over El Paso. We have them all over El Paso. So everywhere in El Paso, you can go and check your microchip. We have targeted free microchip events. And you'll see a little bit about that in the video at the end. But we looked at what happened last year and where the animals came in and where they came from. And what we did was we went to those neighborhoods and started microchipping free. I'll give you the microchip. I have no problem. We got a good deal this year. Give you the microchip it away. And Gina's been doing that every Sunday almost all year. Just going and targeting 100 a Sunday, 150 a Sunday, sometimes more. We had to turn people away last couple weeks ago, right, Gina? Because there's so many people. The other thing we do is be honest with you, I'm not about fees. I'm about getting the dogs and cats back home. We really waive a lot of fees. I put it in the ordinance, like my first week on the job. I showed up to the position and I was like, they said, tomorrow you need to have all your fees done. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what animal services does. How can I do all these fees that quick, right? So I did was they had this big old spreadsheet, right? Gina, you guys can't tell, okay. They had this big old spreadsheet with all the fees, right? And I was like, okay. I looked at what fee it was, say the adoption fee was $30 or the impound fee was $45, right? There's a big old list, right, of all the fees. And I just go down the list and I put, okay, here's what I'm going to do. 0 to whatever it was. And I just put it on the whole list. And I submitted it, and it passed. So I got through the whole year with that. So I could waive the fees anytime I wanted because I put that in the fee schedule, and City Council approved it. That was my little trick. They actually caught it the next year, and I had to write a memo. I wrote the memo. I still got fees waived because I was able to show stuff like this. But waiving fees has helped a lot. I mean, a lot of the reasons the dogs were in our care for such a long time was because the owners couldn't afford to pick them up because they had bills that were thousands and thousands of dollars. Well, I was like, take them home. We waive fees for we especially waive fees for any of the dogs or cats that are on our euthanasia list. And we'll take them back home to you. We'll do everything we can to get the dog back into your house. Again, we had some process improvements, programs. We actually looked at all of our processes for processing animals through the shelter and also in the field, and really looked at how we were doing business and became more efficient with a lot of the processes, including we have what we call the Finder to Foster program. And this is fairly new. We've only been doing it for a couple of months. And what it was at Animal Services, if someone comes in with a stray, they found a dog. Great, you found a dog. Let me give it a shot. Do you want to take it back home and foster it for a while? Oh, yeah. Okay, we did that. The first month we got 68 fosters. And of the 68, 58 got returned back to their home. We're in the second month now, and yesterday, I think it was yesterday, we had 32. People that cared enough to bring the stray animal into the shelter, or not shelter, I don't like that word, into Animal Services, actually fostered the animal until the owners could be located. That is a fairly new program, and we're seeing great success. Over 100 new fosters in less than 2 months, in all returns to owners. The other one is animal protection, shift change, that paradigm change that Cheyenne talked about. We still had them in their bulletproof vests. We still have some in their cowboy hats, right? And this lady over here really, and it's hard to change Hispanic men in El Paso, I'll tell you. Anywhere. It really is, huh? Oops. Jose. I'm not messing with you, Jose. But she did. She really did that change, slowly but surely, the performance measures and rewarding the RTOs. And then I heard them in the hallway, they're like, how many did you get yesterday? It used to be, how many dogs did you get, right? That was the old. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, what are they talking about? They're talking about RTOs now. Not how many dogs they got, how many did you get back home? Because that actually takes a little more skill. Because you got to do research. You got to do all that stuff that Cheyenne said. That animal protection officer's got to be smart, right? You got to be able to figure out and problem solve, and it's actually like a little puzzles to get dogs home. So they did it, and it's really neat to see the transformation. And the guys that just didn't want to do it, they actually just kind of quit. They're gone, right? They dropped off. They weren't on board. They really did leave. Another thing that we did was targeted canvassing. Again, we know where the dogs and cats are coming from because we get either where they're picked up, zip codes, it's in our system. So we target those areas. Again, we canvass those areas. We do vaccine clinics in those areas. We do microchips in those areas. We do, we help them with like their fencing or any other information that they may need in those areas to help them keep the animals in their home. And it, you know, again, the animal protection officers are leading the way in this. And it's really neat to see them out in the community and making that change. Our marketing, our messaging, our media spotlights, our public service announcements really go about the importance of microchipping, the importance of pet responsibility, the importance of updating your microchip and how you can do that at any fire station in El Paso, the importance of getting pets back home. Really talking about how important that is. Especially around the 4th of July in El Paso. I don't know about you guys, but fireworks are driving us crazy. 4th of July and New Year's. And we really go crazy like the week before and the week after, making sure that people know all the things that they need to do because they're going to have people over. Make sure your gates are closed. Make sure you watch your dogs. You know, some really get crazy. Mine can't stand fireworks. And I really have to make sure that I take care of my dogs during fireworks. And we just really do a lot during that time. Actually, that's another reason why July was really high. Again, education piece, we go out into the community, we go out into the schools. During the summertime, we go into all the parks and recreation, summer camps. And we're all throughout the community educating on the importance of microchipping and the importance of making sure that microchip is up to date. And again, the importance of pet responsibility. And the last one is kind of a new one as well. And I call it the Animal Protection Partner Academy. That's my name for it. And again, the city of El Paso is the city. And then we have the county area, which is outside. That's not under my jurisdiction directly, but we provide the sheltering services for the county. And 8 different cities and Fort Bliss, which is a total of 255 square miles and close to 1 million people. And what was happening is that we were returning animals to their owner, but the county of El Paso, Fort Bliss, and some other, the other cities weren't. And so we started this academy to kind of basically talk about making sure that their animal control is doing the same thing as our animal protection, and that we were all in sync on the life-saving mission, but also in sync on returning to owner, because it was hard at first to get them to agree, and still having a little trouble, but when you show them the money, they seem to agree more. So remember that money slide. That one works wonders. If you need to sell this to anyone, the money slide really works. So again, the fire station opportunities, this has just been a great relationship that we have with not only our fire stations in El Paso, but our parks and recreation. Our firefighters are just like so happy to be doing this. It's crazy. They even have a calendar now with the dogs, and we sell the calendar. I mean, it's really grown into something pretty cool. And the firefighters want something else to do besides always thinking about fighting fires. And we have dogs and cats around, you know, that's kind of fun. So they really like this opportunity. And be honest with you, one of the first things some people think about if their dog or cat gets lost is to go to the fire station. It's unbelievable how many calls they were already getting before we even approached them. So some of the things I reiterate that Cheyenne talked about is the impact on the community when you're returning dogs to their owners, is you start to build trust. I can already see it. I'm getting letters now about Gina's group. Don't tell her. But no, I tell her all the time. I'm getting letters all the time about how great this person was, and he helped me fix my fence, or how great he was. He brought my dog home and showed me some tricks to ensuring that he stays in the backyard or whatever. I get so many of those now. And when I first started, I was like getting only complaints. And even in the less than a year that we've started this program, and Gina's been running it up, the community's already starting to trust us more. We're leading by example. We're saving lives. Cheyenne talked a lot about the reasons why we need to return to owner. Well, and we need to lead by example, and we're doing that. Returning to owner also educates the community on pet responsibility. Every time we return a dog to the owner, guess what we're doing? We're talking to them, right? And we have our little four-legged friend, is our billboard. It's just another opportunity to educate the community. We also empower owners and empower our community. We do this in several ways. We let them know all the ways that they can get their microchips. We let them know ways to find where their dog is. And we give them opportunities for the free microchip. And also talking to them about, with our PSAs, and about ensuring that their pets stay home. The fun part, we reunite families. And the most important part, the pets feel loved. I love watching the RTOs. Sometimes I'm in my office working, and I see one of my animal care attendants walking down the hallway with a dog, and I can almost tell already that one's an RTO. And I'm like, that's an RTO, huh? You can tell because the tail's a wagging, and you know that dog knows his owner's right outside. And that is like an awesome feeling, right? I got one of my animal care attendants here actually does that on a lot of times. And it's just a cool feeling to see that happy ending. Well, we get to do that. What better job? It's like amazing. And just to show you Gina's work, hopefully I can do this.
I never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world
together.
right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from
We
mission control. Do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control. Am I drifting?
Well,
Tell me to someone who will love me. Yeah, wait. I think I'll last a bit longer. Find
safe.
another reason to breathe this air. And that we made for ourselves. This won't be the last time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far
more.
from Earth and I wanna know if you exist.
together,
We
Will.
Save
more.
lives.
I'm breathing when I can, and I only hope you're watching this.
And that will conclude my presentation. Thank you very much, everyone.